So hello everyone, I'm Kate Bailey, and I'm here to tell you why SAD-ist animatics are cinematic gold. Let's get started. If you've been online at all in the past year or so, you've probably heard about the Dream SMP, which is now a Minecraft roleplay server. This roleplay has gained a lot of attention for its drama and engaging politics, which in turn has attracted a fandom and more specifically, artists. One of the first artists to make content around this roleplay was SAD-ist, a Filipino YouTube animator and artist who nearly single-handedly jump-started a fanbase for it with Dream SMP War Animatic. Today, I want to go into detail about why SAD-ist animatics are so good and deserve every bit of praise and attention. And before I get far into the video, I want to acknowledge that this roleplay has a lot of lore that can get complicated pretty quickly. But despite that, I want people who aren't into the story to appreciate the artistry of these animatics, so I'll do my best to keep a script that people who aren't into the roleplay can follow. I'll be specifically talking about the videos Warriors, The Fall, Dawn of the 16th, Hog Hunt, and Final Waltz, as they all have a connected story and I feel really best shine as a pinnacle of SAD-ist skill. And if I nerded out about every one of her videos, we'd be here for a long, long time. For this video, I'll be going into the music choice, shot composition, why certain bits are animated more than others, transitions, symbolisms, and essentially an overview of why these works have gained... I didn't need to check the viewer count. I haven't checked her viewer count. SAD-ist character designs are near perfect for animation. They are simple, but distinct. Take the characters of Tommy and Tubbo, for instance. Both are young boys the same age, yet you can clearly tell the difference between the two of them by their distinct and unique eye shape and subtle hair and face shape compared to the rest of the characters. And in more complex character designs, such as Technoblade and Captain Puffy, they are still simple enough to animate. Captain Puffy's unruly hair is still one object, or mass, to animate, and both of these characters' clothes hint at more complex designs, but are still simple shapes that can make animating a little bit easier. Another thing too is that they use clean, thin lines for animation and highlights, keeping things easy to follow during intense action scenes. But what's more is that these character designs are just really nice. They're nice to look at, they're cute or epic, and due to their fundamentally simple and clean nature, leave so much room for expression. Now, speaking of intense action scenes, let's talk about the nature of these videos themselves. Animatics. For those unfamiliar, animatics are basically a blend between full-on animation and storyboards, allowing artists to have a lot of freedom when it comes to where they want to focus their time and energy. Now, what SAD-ist does best is knowing which bits to animate. What this does is really subconsciously emphasize certain actions the characters make as more important than others, making it stick out in the viewer's mind. You can see this with weapon movements or important emotions the characters are feeling, such as when Dream undermines Aerith's political power. Or even lip-sync important quotes. In some parts, SAD-ist uses animation techniques when doing transitions. Instead of hard cuts, she cycles out characters or makes them flow out. This is not only visually interesting, but allows the viewers to easily focus on the next visual. Sometimes, SAD-ist even makes the transitional elements relevant to the story, such as using fire in The Fall. For instance, Wilbur has a torch here as he's talking about his whole villain spiel about wanting to destroy the country he built. And as he turns around, the fire changes the scene to his son holding a torch burning down the flag of his country. In the Warriors animatic, an explosion during a battle also shifts the scene, making you feel engaged in the fight, almost as if you're there. And in Hog Hunt, you have this beautiful axe transition where Technoblade takes a swing at an attacker, there's a flash, and then a literal flashback to the scene that led to those attackers going after him in the first place. You even get this fun little camera shutter, which I'll talk about later. These transitions are honestly one of the reasons I love SAD-ist animatics so much. They take such an overlooked method of filmmaking and add meaning and purpose to them. She's made transitions into an art, and it's so cool. Okay, so I'm a film nerd, right? Obviously, I'm making a video analysis video, so allow me to nerd out about camera angles and compositions for just a little bit. Basically, SAD-ist does this really well. They nail the rule of thirds, which is basically to have characters spaced out in 3 sections of the camera for visual appeal. They nail those close-ups for dramatic effect, wide shots for getting the scope of a fight scene or building. She uses tilted angles to create an unsettled feeling or general tension building. You've got great balance of space and group shots, especially here in Hog Hunt. Just look at this! Look at it! So the focal point here is Quackity's character interrogating Phil's character in his own home. Then you have Tubbo and Fundy in the foreground, sort of framing them as they search his house. Along with that, there's glass shards going around their argument, almost accenting it. So normally this much going on in a single frame would cause visual clutter, but because of the layout and composition by using different ground levels to positioning the characters and objects, it's both visually appealing and tells a story without any words. And this is just one frame in the whole video. So on to audio. I'll be the first to say audio work isn't my forte, but I'll give my 2 cents on what I noticed or appreciate as a viewer. Essentially, SAD-ist uses sparing sound effects, and when she uses them, it's subtle enough for you to register but not have it stand out, which is exactly the goal when it comes to sound effects in film. Like in Hog Hunt, you hear the chains rattle softly as Technoblade walks by, but Final Waltz is where her work with this truly shines as she adds sound effects to the fights. This makes every hit and weapon clash matter and resonate, making it just that much more impactful. And obviously, I can't talk about a SAD-ist animatic without talking about the music. At the risk of sounding unprofessional, the music in these videos is fucking awesome. That's it. That's it. That's the video. No, but seriously, what makes the music more impactful than it already is that SAD-ist uses certain parts to correlate with certain movements, like in fight scenes or certain transitions, tying the 2 elements, art and music, together even more. Before I go from talking about technical aspects of SAD-ist videos to storytelling-centric aspects, I just want to list some general bits she uses that I love. Firstly, the particle effects. This is a great way to eat up dead space without actually adding anything. The dust particles add color and atmosphere to a shot and just make it look cool. They're also pretty effective at using empty space to begin with, especially to communicate the grand size of rooms or environments. What I also love are the camera shakes. It feels like reality is hitting the very camera itself and makes the actions in the scene so much more real. And one last thing is the sword POV change in Hog Hunt. Nothing specific to say here, it's just epic and involves a sword. It's dope, okay? Now, this is where I'm going to get into more storytelling techniques SAD-ist uses and not so much the technical like I've been previously talking about. So one thing you've probably noticed by now is the variety of colors SAD-ist uses in their videos. A lot of typical animatics stick with a white background, sometimes gray. Some artists choose a different color altogether, but what's typical is that the background color stays the same throughout the video. But what SAD-ist does is she changes it up. It's simple but effective. Color theory is something most of you have probably learned, or at least heard about, and SAD-ist uses this very effectively. She uses dark colors for cave scenes, scenes where characters are losing their shit, red for violent battle scenes, or even foreshadowing violent scenes like when Technoblade's vault of weapons is revealed to Tommy. Then you got light green for lighter, friendship-centric scenes like with Tommy and Tubbo. You know, pretty typical stuff. Typical, but again, effective. She also uses small visual details over the course of these videos that subtly communicate story, such as Mars the fish appearing in The Fall and Dawn of the 16th. Mars is a pretty obscure character, if you can even call him that, whose presence has actually greatly affected the overall plot. So to see him included is a really nice touch. You also have Quackity's character looking back at the viewer as Schlatt and George continue their tirade as dictators, hinting at how he's gonna second-guess his choices and eventually going to betray them and join the rebellion. What's also neat is that Wilbur's character in The Final Waltz is dead, and is drawn differently, in more of a thin, wispy way with grayed-out eyes compared to the living characters whose lines are bold and clean. You can also see this level of detail SAD-ist puts into the animatics by their very fight style. In Hog Hunt, when Quackity and Technoblade go at it, you see Technoblade here is quicker, more confident, and vicious, while Quackity is slower, more unsure, and inexperienced, and takes great big swings that aren't necessarily thought out. And one last little detail I love is when Quackity threatens to kill Technoblade's horse. When he presses the axe against his nose, its little nose moves with the pressure. Just look how cute it is. It's adorable. SAD-ist also uses a lot of parallels throughout her videos. For instance, in Warriors, you see Dream standing with his allies about to crush a rebellion. Here he is before he became corrupt, and here he is after, alone, having destroyed his only real friendships in his quest for power. You can also see fun parallels with Technoblade. In The Fall, he stands before a wall ready to fight for freedom with newfound allies. And here, he's out in part for revenge, and his hands are now stained with the blood of the people he's harmed and the battles he's waged. On the topic of parallels, we now get into my favorite thing ever, symbolism. The most obvious bit here is Dream's mask. Over the course of the videos, we see it slowly encroach over more and more of his face until it's entirely covered. This really just represents his descent into corruption, as his humanity disappears and he becomes more bent on power and control. In Hog Hunt, we see Tubbo here holding an axe, and as he shifts it, it reveals a nasty scar. The axe is Technoblade's main weapon, and this scar that Tubbo has was given to him by Technoblade. Also in this scene, Tubbo is thinking about enacting revenge on Technoblade for the crimes he committed against his nation, but also himself. All this summed up by the movement of an axe. Also relevant to Tubbo is this clip here where he walks down the Hall of Presidents. All the way in the back is Wilbur's portrait, entirely blank and seemingly empty. This is because Wilbur morphed into a villain, bent on destroying the country he created, and thus he has been erased from the wall where he was once honored. Next is Schlatt, a corrupt president who became a dictator. His head is turned to the side, not looking at the viewer, as if he has something to hide, and the shadow is cast over his entire portrait, because he was evil! You can also see a shadow cast over Tubbo's portrait here too, because Tubbo's legacy as a leader is still being made. He's in the light, but also in darkness, because in this moment he's debating to whether or not enact revenge. You can even see that his eyes aren't drawn in, possibly suggesting he's blind to revenge, as he ends up going down that path later on. In the next shot, you see Tubbo's little band searching to capture Technoblade. Tubbo is in the front, the leader's position, but Quackity here is the one holding the torch, the light. He was the one to suggest the attack. He was the spark to the whole chain of events in this video and subplot of the story. He is the one truly in charge of this situation. In Final Waltz, as Dream takes Tommy and Tubbo down into his lair, as his evil plan gets revealed, with each level they go down, his shadow grows on the wall. His dark presence becomes more and more oppressive and dangerous. Later on, green strings are used to symbolize different characters' material attachments. But later, we see Dream's attachments are to everything, essentially the server as a whole, as his ultimate plan is to have complete control. It is, after all, called the Dream SMP. One last bit of symbolism is that as Dream and the others use chess allegories and talk about control, the shadows of the people in the background appear as pawns. Since that is what Dream sees them as, pawns in his plan, in his story, in his game. And that, my friends, is why SAD-ist animatics are cinematic gold. It's obvious they put their heart and soul into storytelling and filmmaking, and honestly, it's really admirable. Please go support their channel. That's all I have today, folks. Thanks for sticking around and watching this. I hope to do more video essays since I love talking about different media. And meanwhile, again, please go check out SAD-ist and all her amazing work. I'll see you later.